CS Condition Zero, what was supposed to become the next big step forward for the franchise, unfortunately was tarnished by development hell and merely ended up as only a proof of concept with its single-player experience. The rest of it, and the entire game for that matter, was pretty soon overshadowed by the release of CS Source. I never minded Condition Zero being a successor, but in a way, buying the same CS game with a new coat of paint wasn't really attractive to consumers. Quite the sad tale. What's also sad are the cut maps, which is our topic for today. So similar to my previous lists on the subject, I'll keep it short and concise because there are a lot of maps to cover, some complete, some entirely scrapped, so as to not waste any time, let's get to it. CS Arctic Biolab. This takes place in a former Soviet biological weapons research laboratory. The layout is pretty wide with distinguishable areas and not hard to understand. Gameplay-wise, it's okay. Weird how there's this area with a tunnel leading directly to the hostages, rendering most of the map useless, but there are plenty of hiding spots for the terrorists, so it's not as easy to push it. And side note, this map has some of the creepiest liminal ambience in the game. Just listen. And then there's this area. Maybe there's something more going on in this map. DE Aztec 2. Yes, this is the actual Aztec 2 by Chris Audi. Layout is not that complicated or confusing. It does take inspiration from the first Aztec, but it's overall flawed, yet again. Both bomb sites are pretty vast, with many angles and spots to camp, while the contact points are small, congregating everyone in basically one area, making gameplay kinda not that interesting. And then there's this entire sealed off area, which may have been the old CT spawn. DE Bridge, a village too big to be a CS map. The layout is expansive and confusing to navigate, plus some areas are just dead ends. Not to mention, there's an entire underground section to account for. It looks nice, reminds me of Torn a bit, but my guess is the size is intentional, maybe because it was intended for a mission in deleted scenes. DE Canal, a pipeline construction site set in supposedly Europe, but I'm not too convinced on that one. Layout is pretty okay. It's difficult to get lost here since it's not filled with too many tunnels and areas. Upon closer inspection though, multiple elevations with scaffolding and passages are a constant, so gameplay-wise, it's unpredictable but not entirely bad either. DE City of Sin. Despite the name, it looks rather generic. Layout shows how massive it is, full of hallways and tunnels, and that could be because it was intended as a campaign map, but I'm just speculating. All these tunnels and open areas with balconies and broken walls don't necessarily provide any compelling gameplay, so it's hit or miss. CS Cold Storage, taking place in a weathered industrial district in New York. This is our first map where it does not exist, not even a leaked early build. All there is are a few old, low-quality screenshots and some footage. DE Construction. Only reason we know about this map is because it was featured in an issue of PC Games magazine, and it's pretty blurry, but that's about it. CS Damage, a city with a Middle Eastern setting. This was also scrapped, so all we have are again screenshots and video footage only. DE Dahab. Yet again, this was cut and no leaked versions exist. Setting was also Middle Eastern, and that's about it really. AS Deathtown, a cut assassination map. Layout is very expansive, but that doesn't do it any favors because there is one straightforward path to the escape zone, rendering the rest of the routes useless, but it's not like that's easy to get to since due to the sheer size of everything, T's can very easily defend every single angle. CS Desert Bunker, non-existent. Only existing screenshot is this and nothing else. DE GenoServe. This was supposed to have an office setting with many moving parts like elevators and escalators, but only this screenshot survived. AS Hangar, a scrapped assassination map with only one surviving screenshot. DE Hankagai, scrapped early, ported to the Xbox edition of CS, and scrapped again, but the mission itself in deleted scenes does exist. CS Jungle Camp, scrapped early, but evidence remains. Interestingly, this was probably the beta version of CS Downed, which map was also originally called Jungle Camp, because it does look quite similar. CS Jungle Compound, scrapped early with only 2 known screenshots in existence. CS Miami. This map takes place in an American bank facility. Layout is rather complex, it's more confusing than it looks, but that's because it's based off the Miami Heat mission. There's an underground sewer, multiple vents, and some empty rooms. Gameplay isn't the most compelling, the angles are easy to defend, and flanking also isn't as easy through the vents and underground. DE Otaku, a Japanese nuclear processing plant. Yeah, the name was probably a placeholder. It doesn't exactly exist though, so only screenshots. CS Penal. This map exists and takes place in a prison facility. Layout doesn't seem all too complicated, but honestly, it doesn't need this many routes and passages considering it's a hostage map and most of the combat will be around T-spawn. Other than that, it's an okay map and seems quite finished, but some areas can be exploited. DE Pipeline. Some industrial plant setting, but only screenshots exist of it. DE Quarry. This map is a bit different since its maker, Chris Audi, supposedly made it off contract, so after it was scrapped, he worked on it separately and released it as a custom map. Layout-wise, it's quite elaborate with many open areas that do look quite similar, so while it's not confusing, the texturing might make you feel lost. The original scrapped DE Quarry does also exist, and although similar in idea, it's quite different. Obviously, the layout is a lot more primitive, but this version being smaller and simpler isn't all that bad. If only these stupid slopes weren't everywhere. CS Radio, non-existent, but screenshots showing its radio station setting do exist. CS Range, much less a map and more so CZ's version of a training map, which includes an instructor model, but we may never see it in action, unfortunately. CS Rooftops, again non-existent, but various resources do exist to show how it looked like. DE Rubble, a dark map set in a very desolate area. Layout seems basic with open areas that are easy to remember and navigate. Gameplay is very unpredictable, and not because it's confusing or anything. The map is very straightforward, but it's just too large. Maybe with some downsizing, simplifying some areas, and increasing the damn lighting, this could be a pretty adequate map. CS Shoot House. This originated in CS 1.6 as a custom map and was brought into CZ as an official map, but got cut and it doesn't exist. DE Silo. This map takes place in a Russian missile silo, but unfortunately was cut during development, though screenshots and video do exist. DE Terminal. Non-existent, with a few screenshots as evidence. CS Trailer Park, an American trailer park neighborhood, but it doesn't exist beyond screenshots. CS Truth, based on the Truth in Chaos mission. This multiplayer map was cut because it was remade as a diffuse map, DE Truth, which is part of the CZ map pool. DE Vessel, an Arctic research vessel setting, which sounds cool, but it doesn't exist beyond some screenshots, unfortunately. And that's sort of it. This was quite the mix, but it's interesting that some of them we never knew about until the Valve repository leak happened, and even though some were just names and low-quality screenshots, I thought it was important to include them as cut maps because, well, they are in a way. Don't expect a video about CS Source cut maps because, well, there aren't really any except basic prototypes, again from the Valve repository leaks. Speaking of leaks though, my refrigerator has been building up puddles of water and I was told I have to plug it in the outlet, but I don't believe that nonsense, so I'm gonna go watch some YouTube tutorials to figure out the issue and maybe get a mechanic to